Okay, so witchcraft. It kind of makes you think of like, the bubbling cauldrons and the pointy hats, right?
Right.
But we're going deep on a different kind of magic today as we deep dive into Witchcraft, a beginner's guide. We're
Okay.
going to be like separating the Hollywood hocus pocus from what witchcraft is really all about today. And you might be surprised to find out that it's less about spooky spells and more about connecting with yourself in the natural world.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with that one. I think what I found really fascinating about this book was how it presents witchcraft as like a way of life, not just some kind of supernatural spectacle.
Yeah.
It emphasizes this deep connection to nature and the unseen energies that flow through all things, which I think a lot of people are really looking for in our kind of fast-paced world these days.
Totally. It's like we all have a little bit of magic in us, and this book is saying, tap into it. What I thought was really interesting was how the book describes witches as like people who are really tuned into those subtle energies, almost like a form of mindfulness. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that the book really wants to do is kind of dismantle that stereotypical image of the witch.
Yeah.
We're not talking about, you know, broomstick riding, devil worshipping figures here. It's those images and misconceptions, I think, really stem from a place of fear and misunderstanding. What this book tries to bring forward is a reality that's much more grounded, much more relatable, and I think even empowering.
So no need to worry about your neighbor turning into a toad then.
No, no toads.
But speaking of misconceptions, what about the witch hunts? It's a really dark period in history, and it's hard to kind of reconcile that with this idea of witchcraft as a path of, personal growth and connection. So how does the book deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, the book really dives into that historical context.
Well,
And it acknowledges, the very real persecution that took place. But it goes a step further than that. It tries to kind of unpack and understand the societal anxieties, the paranoia that really fueled those hunts. And it suggests that, people often project their own repressed desires and fears onto others, and this creates those scapegoats.
oh, totally. It's like blaming the outsider.
Yeah.
But why witches specifically? I mean, what made them such an easy target?
Well, the book makes this really compelling argument that, a lot of that fear stemmed from this deep discomfort with female empowerment and anything that challenged the established order of the day. And remember, this was a time when patriarchal, dogma-driven religion really held sway. So these independent women who lived outside of those societal norms were seen as dangerous.
Right, because they didn't conform.
Exactly.
And that just makes you think about how fear and misunderstanding can be used to kind of control and oppress people. But that was then, and you mentioned earlier that witchcraft is having like a resurgence. So why now in our modern world of like logic and science and reason, why are people drawn to witchcraft now?
Well, and I think that's what's so interesting, right? Because if you think about it, today's world, we're constantly bombarded with information. We're constantly plugged in. A lot of us feel really disconnected from ourselves and from nature.
Yeah.
And I think what the book is arguing is that witchcraft can be an antidote to that. It's about finding that sense of balance, reconnecting with nature,
Yeah.
and really tapping into our own intuition.
So less about like casting spells and more about rediscovering a sense of wonder and personal power.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's something that I think resonates with a lot of people today, right?
Sure.
So it's like witchcraft is less about like supernatural powers and more about like harnessing a power that we already have in ourselves.
Right.
But I gotta ask, I mean, when we think about witchcraft, we think about spells and rituals.
Hmm.
So like, what's the deal with that? Is it really magic or is there something else going on?
Yeah. Well, the book takes this really like down-to-earth approach and explains that, spells aren't really about summoning these like mystical forces or anything. It's more about working with natural energies through focused intention, understanding that like attracts like, and using those correspondences to kind of create change. And it's really a concept that you see across a lot of different cultures and practices.
Okay, so now you've got me like curious about these correspondences. What does that actually look like in practice? So is that using like certain herbs or colors because of their energetic properties?
Exactly. Yeah, so each element, carries a unique kind of vibration, and by understanding those, you can actually use them in this really focused way to kind of align with your intention. So think about it this way, like if you're feeling really stressed and you want to kind of invite more peace into your life, well, you might surround yourself with these calming colors, like blues and greens, maybe use some lavender scents, or even incorporate some symbols of tranquility into your space. It's about consciously creating an environment that really supports what you're wanting to bring into your life.
So it's not like chanting the right words to like conjure something out of thin air. It's more about understanding and working with energy that's already there.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's fascinating how this like ancient practice that we're talking about has so much to do with like mindfulness and intention, which is something that like modern psychology is really focused on now.
For sure.
But what about all the tools? We always hear about, wands and broomsticks and all these other like magical objects. What role do those play?
Yeah, the book explains that these tools are really like primarily symbolic. They act as these extensions of our will and our intentions. So for instance, like, a wand isn't really about having this like magic stick.
Right.
It's about focusing and directing energy. It becomes an extension of your hand, a way to kind of channel that intention. Kind of like, a paintbrush is an extension of the artist.
Right.
And then with broomsticks, it's not what you think.
No.
No. No flying, unfortunately. It's more about, sweeping away negativity, representing cleansing and purification.
So no joyrides.
Not quite.
Okay. Well, that makes me wonder then if witchcraft is about like tapping into your personal power, connecting with nature, how would someone even know if it's like right for them?
That's a good question.
Is it something you're like born with, or is it something anyone can explore?
Yeah, and that's something that, a lot of people kind of grapple with, and the book offers some really great advice, I think. Essentially, it suggests that if you're drawn to witchcraft, if it sparks your curiosity, that's a good sign. It's encouraging you to explore those feelings, without the judgment, to read, research, experiment with, simple practices like meditation, connecting with nature, and just kind of seeing how they resonate with you.
It's about trusting your gut.
Exactly.
Gap inner compass.
Yeah.
But what about like the social aspect of it? Because witchcraft is often portrayed as this like solitary practice, very secretive. Is that true, or is there like a sense of community there?
Yeah, the book acknowledges the importance of, finding like-minded individuals.
Yeah.
Especially, as witchcraft is becoming more, I guess, accepted and celebrated openly these days. It even offers some practical advice for, connecting with local groups or covens, emphasizing the support and the shared wisdom that comes from being a part of a community.
Oh, that's cool. So you're not like totally alone if you don't want to be.
Right.
But with all the, the history of persecution and the misunderstandings, are these communities actually open and welcoming to like newcomers?
That's a great point. And the book really stresses the importance of finding the right fit for you. Because not all groups or practices are created equal. It encourages you to kind of approach this exploration with an open mind, an open heart. Respect those personal boundaries while also honoring your own journey.
Yeah, approach it with curiosity and respect.
Exactly.
Just like you would anything else.
Exactly.
Like a spiritual path or a personal growth thing.
Yeah.
So, with all the misconceptions about witchcraft still, are there any other like common myths that the book kind of debunks that would like surprise our listeners?
Yeah, I think, one thing that the book really tries to address is this idea that witchcraft is about, manipulating others or like controlling outcomes. It really emphasizes that true power lies in self-empowerment and working in harmony with, natural forces, not in bending them to our will. It's about recognizing that we're part of something much larger than ourselves.
So it's like witchcraft is really about, working with the natural flow of energy, not like trying to force it or bend it to your will.
Yeah, exactly. It's about understanding that we're a part of something much bigger and working with that power, not against it.
It's refreshing to hear that, that it lines up with ethical intentions and respecting that interconnectedness of everything. But like, for those of us who might still be a little skeptical, is there any like concrete proof that witchcraft works? What would you say to someone who's like, show me the receipts?
Right. Well, I think that's a fair question. And it's a question every good skeptic asks.
That's right.
And the book actually acknowledges that healthy skepticism is really important. But it also reminds us that just because, something can't be like fully explained by current scientific understanding doesn't mean that it's not real or valid.
Yeah.
Think about like the placebo effect, for example.
Oh,
It's a really great example of the very real power of belief and intention. And science recognizes that.
So even if we don't totally understand how something works, there's evidence that our thoughts and beliefs can like actually impact our reality.
Absolutely. And you know what I thought was really interesting? The book also kind of delves into some scientific concepts. And while they aren't necessarily proof of witchcraft, they do offer some like thought-provoking parallels. Like it touches on this idea of synchronicity. Those meaningful coincidences that seem to kind of defy the odds. Witches have always believed that there are connections between things that seem unrelated, like there's this hidden pattern to the universe that we can tap into.
So instead of just like writing those coincidences off as like random chance, we might actually be seeing them as meaningful synchronicities.
It's exactly.
It's like the universe is trying to tell us something.
Exactly.
Mm.
And what I thought was even more mind-blowing is how the book even brings in like quantum physics.
Whoa. Okay.
Have you ever heard how like our thoughts and observations can actually influence like the behavior of subatomic particles?
Yeah, it's a little out there, but fascinating.
It's a little out there, but it does make you kind of wonder about the role of consciousness
Yeah,
in shaping reality.
totally. So it's almost like science is like catching up to what witches have like intuitively understood for like centuries.
Right.
That there's more to the universe than we can see, that we're all connected, and that our thoughts and intentions like really do have power.
Yeah.
This deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about.
That's the beauty of exploring these topics, right? It's not about just blindly believing everything. It's about being curious and questioning what's possible.
Yeah.
And if this conversation maybe sparked your own curiosity about witchcraft, remember, it's a journey.
Yeah, it's not a race.
It's not about like getting to the finish line.
This has been so interesting. I mean, it's really challenged like my own ideas about, what witchcraft is all about. And you've given us so much to like think about. If our listeners want to like learn more, where should they go?
Well, I definitely recommend checking out the book we talked about today, Witchcraft, A Beginner's Guide. It's a really great starting point. And just, remember, it's all about connecting with your own intuition, finding what resonates with you, and approaching this path with an open mind.
And a sense of wonder. Yeah. Accurately. Who knows? You might just discover a little magic in yourself and the world around you. And that is what the deep dive is all about. We love to dive deep into these fascinating topics, challenge assumptions, and hopefully spark your curiosity. So until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and remember, there's always more to discover.